Good evening. Hand today is King Jack of Hearts. So in this hand, we're going to be multi-way. So we've got a limper. He's playing 30% VPIP, 5% pre-flop raise. His early position stats: raise first in 0 out of 11. Limped first ins 36, so 4 out of 11. He is going to be fairly loose. Probably doesn't like to raise a lot. What was the percentage again? 36%. That's a pretty wide range. We're going to give him probably all I think all the broadways. Not sure if he has some of those. Could be all aces. I think we'll do that. That's his limping range. And then we have a raise. This player is 58 hands. He's playing 32-19. His raise with previous limpers is 25%, 1 out of 4. Just looking at his pre-flop raise, 4 out of 16. Raise first ins, 3 out of 9. So let's see if we can build a range here. Think we will probably go all pocket pairs. Let's go suited aces. I think we're going to be similar range. I think we're going to be a little bit tighter for this player. 19%. That's 21%. We don't have a huge number of hands here. We don't have a huge number of hands in what he would raise with. He might have these offsuit broadways, but I would expect limping with those hands instead of raising. So I think that's going to be his range. And then we have a caller. I'm going to say he raised 4.4 big blinds, which is bigger than what you normally see. Could mean that he is just trying to get heads up versus this guy. Maybe he knows him, or he has a hand that's a little bit more speculative and is trying to apply pressure, or he's got a big solid hand that he wants people to call with. And then we get this guy who calls. He's playing super tight. I think he's going to be probably pairs. Going back to the first guy, we're going to take out kings plus, ace king. I think maybe even queens plus, since I think he would have probably raised. Now, getting back to this caller, he's playing 5-3 out of 40 hands. We're going to give him the pockets. We're going to take out aces, queens plus. Maybe just something like this. Maybe that's about it. 10% he calls. Maybe he has a king jack. Maybe he doesn't. And then it's to me. So what do I do with this? I think the only player that has could have a big hand would be this player, the raiser. I think limping kind of excludes the big hands, queens plus ace king. I think calling tends to exclude those as well. I look behind me and I have some tight players. I would assume that if I call, this guy's probably also going to call, and we're gonna go 3-way or 4-way with the pot. Now, versus middle position player, I mean that's technically my calling range, but we are going multi-way, so I think with some of this range, I think we could probably raise to try to get heads up. I mean, definitely if we raise, we're going to be raising up to maybe about 15 big blinds, 16 big blinds. We're in position, so if we get called, we're going to be we can see bet quite a bit. We'll give ourselves a bread and butter situation. I think if I raised, he's probably going to fold. I'm going to guess if he folds, then he's going to fold too. And I think we can raise with a lot of hands, including like ace queen. Even if we decide to raise, we could probably do it with ace jack, king queen. We could do it probably with some of these other weaker hands as well. Say jack 9, queen 10, king 10. You know, those cards that don't necessarily do well in a multi-way pot. I did call, so I'm going to say that this is my range, and we see that villain 3 calls, and we see a flop. So let's get our range here. We're dealing with 8.9%. We've got 118 combos in our range, and then we see king, queen, 3 of spades. So monotone board. This player checks, and I'm going to assume that he's always going to check his hands, but then villain 6 checks, and with villain 6 checking, I don't have any information on him say betting, but I would assume that he would probably check a flush. I mean, definitely the nut flush. Could be betting it, but I kind of think if he has the ace flush, he's going to be checking it. Let's go ahead and say if that's his. What does he do? I do think. Oh, he does check. So he did check. So we're gonna say the flush checks, but not all of the flushes. We're gonna say that all of the ace checks, and then we'll say the jack 10, jack 9, 10 9 checks, because he's got, you know, straight flush potential, and it's hoping to hit. Yep. Okay. Straights doesn't have straights. I do think a set would bet. I think a 2 pair would bet. I think over pair would probably bet to see what happens. Top pair, I assume, would bet. Middle pair checks. I think we have all of those checking. I think the nut flush draw check bets. I think the second nut bets. I think the, let's see, we do the second nut bets and the nut flush bets. I do think open-ended straight draw calls, checks, minus the jack 10, jack 10 of spades, and so forth. So I think that is his checking range, which is kind of weak. And then we already have 2 checks here. So now this player, I do think he would probably check his flush, but I think his sets would be betting. I think his 2 pair would be betting. Over pair would be betting. Top pair would be betting. So we're going to say he's going to have those. I think his nut flush would have bet. Second nut would have bet. And straight draws are checking. So he's right there, and now it's on us. What should we do? I do believe I checked here. I think I checked. But in terms of betting, I kind of think along the same lines, is that I think my flush. Let's go back to this player. I think he's going to check his ace of spades. I think these, we'll leave the 10 9 and jack 10 in there. I do think the flush, we might be able to get some value, but I don't think we're going to get some value from ace jack. So like if we have ace jack, there's an ace isn't out there, jack isn't out there now. So the nut and the second nut, they're not out there to draw. So I don't think we're going to get value if we bet here. Same thing with the ace 10. I don't think we're going to get value here if we bet here, but I do think we should be betting jack. I think we should be betting all of those. I try to get value from ace of spades, jack of spades, ace of spades. If I have the jack of spades, of course they can't have it. I do think we should be probably betting our two pair. I think we should be betting our top pair. Uh, I mean, unless we think this player is slow playing, we can always, check and go for delayed value. So perhaps we check our 100% our range. However, I think with some of our boards, we should be betting and trying to take advantage of the fact that everyone checked to us. So maybe, we have, uh, maybe we check top pair, two pair. Um, I know I checked here. Check our gut shots, maybe. Maybe check our gut shots. Yeah, because if we check our gut shots, I think we've got the spades that are going to be calling, and all we're doing is building a bigger pot. I mean, it's already 19. If we bet 15 into this or 12 into this, we're going to be left. Let's say 12. We're going to be left with 67, and if we get a caller, we're going to be um, 30, 43. So it's almost going to be one pot size bet. So yeah, I think we're going to have to really just kind of be a little bit cautious. So I do think we're going to probably need to check this entire range, because we don't want to bet and then give up a lot of our equity. So I think 100% of our range we should probably check, including flush draws and the flushes that we currently have. We'll take a gamble that someone has trips and fills up. I think that's going to be our play. Do have to consider, pot size. We are, yeah, we would just basically have to over bet pot as a bluff with a lot of these hands. So yeah, I do kind of think we're gonna be checking here. So we did, and that's 100% of our range. We have 106 combos, and now we've got the 10 of diamonds, and that's even kind of interesting, because now it adds a few more draws on here. So now that this guy, checks, he doesn't seem to be overly aggressive. I think he could probably easily just like check everything. Again, even as his flushes and straights. This guy, we already, again, everyone's checked. No one's really showing anything. I think they continue with the flush. I think the straights are gonna check. I don't think we're gonna see a bet until the river. Quite frankly, I think all of them are gonna go 100% check, because they're worried about the straight, worried about the flush, and even if they themselves have the straight or the flush, they're hoping somebody else is going to bet into them. So now it gets around to me, and we're now in our situation where we can bet 12 and leaves us with one bet on the river. So I think now we can think about betting, try to build a pot for value. I do think we're going to be betting our flush. Ace Jack, Ace 10, Jack 10, Jack 9, 10 9. I think we're going to bet probably even 7 8 and 9 8. Although we do have to be aware that we're blocking a lot here if we have them. The nines, the jacks, we're going to be blocking a lot of hands that could potentially call us. Just so we're aware of that. I do think. So I just think we should be betting a flush, and then we should probably be betting the nut flush as well. Probably the second nut flush, ace and jack, and I don't think we're going to be doing the third nut. I don't think we're doing the third nut. That's 7%. So let's see what it is. 7 combos versus and 6 combos, 50-50. Yeah, that's probably about right. 50-50. 50% value, 50% bluff. So better flush and then better our nut draws there. And then everything else, I think we just check. So let's get this down and X out those draws. So I did check again. So we've got that. It's down to 86.7%, 85 combos. 7 of hearts, everything misses. I don't think I think now it's going to be the time where if anyone has a hand, we're going to definitely see it. Villain checks. I'm going to say he X's out all of these. I think he would be betting even 2 pair for value. I think top pair checks, weak pair, nothing, all of those. 76.4%. Top pair or below with a lot of ace high weak pairs. This player checks. Again, I do think he's going to look for some value from flushes, from straights. I think from sets, he's going to look for some values. Same thing, two pair. So I just think he's looking at middle pair below, which represents almost 80%, 79.2%. So at this point, you can see their equity really drops. This player checks, and again, I mean, there's no reason for him to check. So I think he's at middle pair or below, which you can see 77.5%, 13, which gives me a huge lead based on my hands. And question is, what do I do? I think if I bet, everyone's just going to fold, so I really don't think I could bet for any sort of value, even though I really should be betting for value with my straight. I just think if I don't know how many of these cards can call, middle pair plus, maybe top pair, maybe the kings will come along. But I think we're just going to have to check 100% of our range because I don't think we're getting called enough. Now, that doesn't mean, we can't bluff. I think maybe we can bluff some of these weak pairs and maybe even nothing. Just to say, hey, we're going to bet it. So let's say we'll bet a straight. Let's see this, straight. Weak pair, nothing, 65.43%. We turn the weak pair into a bluff. Oops, hold on. They're 50% weak pair. Then we bet everything else. I think that's way too much. So I think with a weak pair, what we should be doing here is I think ace 10 is a check. Maybe the 4, 5, 6. Maybe those. Okay, so maybe that and nothing. No, we're not going to bet that. And I don't even know if we could do all of them. It's still a lot. 44.4%. That's still a lot. Maybe we take those out and just say 4, 5s, and 6s. That's 18 combos. And then straights and sets and 2 pairs. That might be better, 31 to 18. That might be the better range to go ahead. Try to get some value from those. Maybe they call because they think I'm bluffing, but then we keep top pair, middle pair, weak pairs, nothings, all of those just as kind of like a showdown hand, including our top pair type hands. So I think that's probably what we would bet. I checked. So we had 4s, 8s, and ace queens. Definitely had 4s in this villain's range. Definitely had 8s in this villain's range. There's the weak pairs, the 8s, and then he had ace queen of clubs. Actually think ace queen of club. Yep, ace queen is in there. What is it? Middle pair, ace queen. So we had that in his range as well. So we had all hands, and even when we put it down, we do think they have the ranges. Now, if we had, let's go back to my betting range. We said 4, 5, 6s. If we bet, we're trying to get those hands to call 8, maybe even ace queen. I think those are good bluffs because they could potentially get those hands to fold. Now, if they don't, if they call with any pair, then we'll have to change what our bluffing range is and what our value range is. I think then we can kind of shift it to maybe removing the weak pair and just do the nothing 9/8, um, 3 combos, but we'll see. So on this hand, I kind of feel like we may have missed a bet on the flop. But that being said, when we look at how many players are out, the pot size, it's currently versus my stack size, I think checking the flop and then going possibly for a turn bet would have been a little bit better. It's more in line with what you could have done if you had like the ace of spades, or you flop the flush. You're hoping somebody improves enough to call. It just so happened that 10, that turn card, was horrible. If this was a different card, let's say 7 of diamonds, 8 of diamonds, I think it would have been a much better card to go ahead and bet. All right, if you like this hand, look tomorrow for another.